We'd like to go ahead and call this committee meeting together, the Capital Investments Committee meeting for Thursday, July the 8th. The second item on the agenda is approval of minutes of June the 10th, 2010. I'll entertain a motion if everyone's had a chance to read those.
Move for approval.
Proper motion second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Next item on the agenda is we generally set aside a time for any citizen comments on anything, on any item that's not on the agenda. And I've been asked to provide a few minutes for that. And Mort, if you'd like to come up, find a microphone and spend a few minutes with us on your non-agenda item.
Thank you.
We'll have it.
I appreciate that. There was an article in the Williamson AM, I think it was June 29th, a couple of weeks ago, and where they talked about I-65 widening has now been funded. Let me just read part of this article. Construction could start late this summer on the long-awaited I-65 widening. There's $100 million in federal money in place for the work, divided into two sections between Highway 96 and the Goose Creek interchange, and from Goose Creek south to State Route 840. The first section is expected to go to bid sometime after the new fiscal year, which starts July 1, said TDOT spokesperson Julie Oakes. Construction could start in late summer and take roughly 18 to 24 months to complete. Funding for the second section, which includes a redesign for the Goose Creek interchange, also is in place for fiscal year 2012-13. So that work could start as the first section is finished. Here's what they're talking about is when construction starts, traffic will be reduced to one lane in each direction and may cause even more delays for commuters, Oakes said. The state will work with local law enforcement to keep traffic flowing as much as possible. I don't think there's enough law enforcement officers around to keep that traffic flowing very good. And what I came to ask this committee and the city do is to come up with alternative routes so that local traffic can at least have an alternative way to get around that one lane of traffic on I-65. And one of the ideas, one alternative would be to finish Carruthers South, the bridge, and to connect a long lane so that the redirected traffic could help facilitate local traffic. It's my understanding that all the design has been completed, the environmental has been approved, and that there's also a time limit on how long the environmental will last. I'm not sure how long. It could be 3 or 4 years. We might be able to stage it. One idea would be to build a bridge and maybe just grade the 4 lanes and then only build 2 of the lanes as an alternative. Because I know in terms of funds and such as that the city is looking for ways, to cut down the debt. And that would be one way of, reducing the cost instead of building the whole thing right at once. And it will take, it really needs to be completed before that bridge starts. Because once the interchange is started, it would really even cause more concern for local traffic. It's one of the things, I talked to Paul Collins with Sullivan Engineering, and he said he would be glad to explain if you want to hear it, the idea, what they have completed and how long it would take maybe to get up to speed so that we could actually bid it, if you want to hear from Paul.
Well,
the project is in the mill. We do have design about completed. We do know the time frames, basically when we have funding to do the next section, which is we have funded for right of way.
Construction is not funded.
Construction is not funded. It was not a high enough priority on your funding list. So that's where we are. I've read the article. The bridge itself will probably take about 2 years to build. That's what we were pushing for. We staff on this project was to try to get to the point that Mr. Stein is talking about. But with the funding situations and all, we're not there.
When we talked about when we talked about completing this project, we weren't thinking about the widening of 65, but wasn't it for development out there?
It's for providing the infrastructure that the city is going to need as it builds out.
Development occurs.
The push by staff to get started and try to have completion of the project was pushed forward in previous CIPs to try to beat the widening and the reconstruction of the Goose Creek interchange. So yes, it was, staff's intent was to try to get that done prior to, for the very reasons that have been mentioned. But the intent, the project is to try to get the infrastructure out there before it's actually needed versus waiting until after it's needed, so.
So even if all of our ducks were in a row, we're not going today, we would not get it built in time to help.
Well, if the schedule that is stated there, which is problematic, I think, no. We could have it built about the time they're in construction, possibly, but that article is stating that funding for the interchange in 2012, 2013, that's a year or 2 years earlier than what we were told before, because when we had the 4.8, we had it scheduled for 13, 14. So, I don't know. The answer to that is I don't know, and what we've seen, I just say it plain, what we've seen with TDOT is they're not meeting the schedules like they come out with sometimes, so.
Well, what other options do you have in mind other than building a new road?
Well, in terms of, I really hadn't thought about other options. I know there could be some management ideas that could go along with it. But the reason I came here is because the fact that this has been moved up. This schedule has been moved up, and part of building Carruthers was to relieve the traffic when I-65 gets widened. And since that's been moved up, the idea was that you'd move up Carruthers and at least build part of it, the bridge, like I said, in one lane, because that's all you have running through Highlands at Ladd Park is one lane. But you got it all the way, 2 lanes, a 2-lane road, and you got a 2-lane road down Long Lane. So if you at least built part of it to get that local traffic to at least ameliorate some of the traffic backup that's going to be. And the sooner you start it, the faster it's going to be available to people during this 4 or 5 year period. So if it takes a year and a half to 2 years to do, at least you'd get ahead of it by 2 or 3 years.
When you're talking about local traffic, you mean more than that, don't you? You mean all the traffic on 65?
Well, I doubt if people who are coming down 65 from Columbia or from Murray County, they would come up there, get off, and then go down Long Lane. What I'm talking about is that people who live in Williamson County who are using I-65, then they would have an alternative to come up through there. That would be one option. Now what's going to happen is that everybody who lives, down towards Spring Hill in Williamson County, and some in Murray County, they're just going to come up Lewisburg Pike. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a horrendous bottleneck on McHatcher Parkway, Lewisburg Pike, downtown Franklin, because they're going to come all the way till as you know, traffic just keeps coming and tries to find the easiest way to go. So it will cause a huge bottleneck through all of Franklin. And so when I say local traffic, I'm talking about Williamson County, at least those people who will most likely use Lewisburg Pike or other routes, even going down, Arno Road and whatever. I mean, it is going to create a huge bottleneck everywhere. And at least what we can do is you don't want to wake up in the morning and see all those cars backed up trying to get to I-65.
One thing too to point out to everyone is we are having a study done to look at the mitigation for that area when the construction is being done. If you remember, we hired or we added funding to the major thoroughfare plan project with Wilbur Smith to do that. It got kind of sidetracked, the other study, due to all the changes that we were looking at with major thoroughfare plan, but also what we were going to do with the interchange itself. So it's gotten a little bit sidetracked. We expected to have it by now, but we don't have it yet. So, but that is something that we should be getting in the next several months. So
You think there'll be something in here to address this?
that's what it's for, is to look at how we're going to mitigate during that time. It's going to be limited what we'll be able to do if we don't have other roadways. You're going to have Arno Road on the east. You're going to have Lewisburg Pike and Columbia Avenue on the west. That's your mitigation, north and south. But it's looking then at how we handle the mitigations, what we have to do a little bit, that sort of stuff. But it was also looking to see if we could get some interim projects done to help with the mitigation.
I think that was your comment, Mrs. Stein, when you and I talked earlier about this, is that we need to proactively be looking at this, because what we're going to have is that
Well,
situation.
at least put it on the agenda for next time. And maybe speed up this study you're talking about by Wilbur Smith.
Okay.
And let's, look at alternatives of how, what I know Clyde has been talking about, looking at alternatives of where we could relieve some other money that may be committed or planned for to put on another project that's going to be very important, in my opinion, because all you have to do is go out to, at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 in the morning, go out to I-65 where it's 2 lanes, and it's a parking lot now. It's just going to be a bigger parking lot.
Ann?
My first comment would be that the traffic is really on the west side. I don't know what the traffic counts are on the east side. I haven't looked at it in a while, but really, there's almost no traffic over on the east side of 65. The problem is, as you've stated,
Well,
is Lewisburg and the west side.
I will disagree with you. Being a person that lives on Arno Road, there are people already that are using Arno Road because they can go 840 up to Arno. That the traffic has increased tremendously on Arno.
But number-wise, it is not anything close to what's on Lewisburg. But the other thing I want to say is, and I have no idea how they're going to handle this, but I used to drive to Columbia whenever they were widening for 840, and even though the traffic is much worse now than it was then, they were able to handle it, and they did not have it down to 1 lane for all the time. They did not at all. There were some times whenever it was, but they really worked to try to do as best they could on that. But as I say, if you look at the numbers on the traffic, the numbers are over on the Lewisburg side, I think. And I understand that ideally this is something that is going to get done, but if you look at where we have the money, we've been trying to get Hillsborough Road done for how many years? It's been our number 1 priority for at least 2 years, and we're not, we're saying that that's going to take, 3 or 4 more years, I find it amazing that we could push something up that hasn't been our number one priority and get it done quicker than something that has been our number one priority for at least 2 years.
I don't think Mort's advocating push. I think Mort's just bringing something to the attention of the committee, to the attention of the city, that we've got some issues to deal with. We've got some studies that we may be able to do. And, you know, I see the interstate stopped at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, heading south. I don't mean moving slowly. I mean stopped. 4 lanes, under the bridge, on 96, stopped.
That going to from 4 to 2, that's a killer.
We're going to 4 to 1.
Yeah, even worse, even worse. I agree.
Let us follow up on,
Yes.
we had anticipated some of these needs with the study. We'll try to work to move that along and also maybe coordinate more too what TDOT may be thinking, because we've heard, let's say, mixed messages about the timing of when this might really happen. Try to get a better handle on that, get with Wilbur Smith about how this might work and some of the alternatives, and bring that forward to you maybe as an update at the next CIP meeting as well.
Sounds good.
And we'll tell you,
Thank you, Mark.
the city did receive plans for the widening.
Got 'em today?
No, I got them 2 days ago.
Yeah.
What were you doing with them?
I was going over. They're like that thick. Also, I think it's important for everyone to know that in August, we will be reviewing our CIP priority list, and that's when this issue comes back up. So, as you know, I think that will be part of the discussion, and you know, I think it would be important for everybody to have information on not only this project, but the other projects that are on the list and that haven't already been funded, and we re-rank as we said we were going to do, and then after we re-rank, then we have to figure out if there's any way we can pay for it. I mean, that's the process we've set up. Seems to be working very well, and that's when this comes up.
Bill?
Yeah. Hi. Excuse me, here, I'm all wet. My hair's still wet.
Glad the rain.
I couldn't complain.
My hair is still wet. I just wanted to say, I agree with David on that Arnold Road thing. With the traffic starts stopping around 3:30, and I watch that every day. And when it starts stopping, Arnold Road becomes extremely busy. And I've been driving down there lately, and I've actually tried to make it a point to drive down there during rush hour. And it is really getting busy.
Are you slowing me up?
Yeah, I'm slowing you up. I'm out sightseeing.
You're leaving at 4 o'clock now?
No.
That's when I leave here.
Actually, I was down there at 5 o'clock the other night.
Like
and
that that's barking up the road.
I was down there at 5 o'clock the other night on Arnold, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But I'm concerned that when that road gets started, when 65 gets started, what we're going to do, because, as you know, we already have this bottleneck that just totally stops. And we're not talking Friday afternoons, we're talking Monday through Friday.
Yep.
And people are going to want to get down there, and you know, I wish we had a money tree. 'Cause
Maybe we
do
could encourage the trains and the buses to start.
need something. Need something.
Good point.
That's a good talk. But anyway, I just wanted to share.
I'd be
share that.
screaming for a bus or a train if I was traveling that road.
Centuries on the trains.
But they are
buses might be a
using
little
that,
quicker.
that east side.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Item 3, discussion concerning the status of the various streetscape design projects and what action needs to be taken concerning the continuation of the projects. Mr. Parker.
You have in the packet the memo that we started to discuss this the last meeting, but we had to do some staff looking again. We do have several projects that are streetscape projects. We're not advocating stopping the Columbia Avenue or the Hillsborough Road by any shape, form, or fashion. But we also do not want to keep doing work on projects that are long-term priority projects that we can save, you know, tens of thousands of dollars by stopping once we get to a point. Now, we ask you to let us, staff, and this includes all the staff, and we would come back to you with a resolution for stopping the project or
Get it to sort of a logical.
Get it to
in
a
terms of design
plans.
and maybe ready for right away, but then the funding needs to come.
Yes,
for us
what
to go
what
through.
we're trying to do is get the design done up to the point of doing right-of-way documents. And the reason we don't even want to do right-of-way documents is because with the streetscape project, we have to do extra work because of underground electrical and things like that for the right-of-way, et cetera. So we want to stop it before we do the right-of-way documents, have the plans approved by staff to approvable state, and then shelve it until we're really ready to do something. That will save us several $1,000s, and we would come back to the board with the change to the design contract approval to stop the work. I think we did that on 2 parks projects. Where's Lisa? Bicentennial, we did that. So that's what we're proposing to do. Because, I mean, their funding's not there. So, that's what we want to do.
But you will complete the design.
We will get the design completed as what we call right-of-way design stage. Keep in mind, when you get to a right-of-way design stage and then you go through the right-of-way acquisition, you have some more design that has to be done because you typically have to make some changes based on the acquisition process.
With that.
So it's a tweak site situation. But with the properties subject to changing hands and all that, we don't even want to start the right-of-way at all.
So Dave, when I look at Franklin Road here, and I see 98% design complete, so that other 2% is something, are you advocating stopping at 98%? I mean, help me understand that.
Possibly, yes. Probably, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, you also got $55,000, almost $56,000 remaining in the contract.
What has happened to the money that was set aside to build sidewalks from town out to the factory?
It's escrowed.
Okay, and that, we can't do that until you do the whole Franklin Road project, is that correct?
Well, I guess you could. I don't think you'd want to. You want to tie it into a plan of some type.
Well, if
but
it's
it was set up for working into that.
But if it's years down the road, or maybe never, does that mean the money's just going to sit there and people are still going to be walking in the middle of Franklin Road to get to town?
Yes, ma'am. But do you want to spend that money and then tear it all out? So, I mean, plus the fact, you got to keep in mind that Franklin Road is an open roadside ditch. So if you try to put sidewalks, you're going to have to do drainage and all that too. That's the reason you got the escrow money to wait till a project was done.
Yeah, that money only covers the sidewalk. It does not cover the grading or the drainage.
Yeah.
And that's where all the additional work is. Okay.
Now, to answer your question, Pearl, we've got, based on the original contracts and the scopes of work, these numbers are broken down into the different tasks. So like the $55,000 that's left for Franklin Road, that covers the rest of the design, the right-of-way documents, and et cetera.
So
I didn't have enough room to put it on this memo, but it's broken down into tasks that you could see on the original contract.
On that example, though, are we at the right-of-way point?
Not quite. Not quite. We haven't got the plans to a staff-approved level at this point.
But our intent would be to bring each of these to that point.
Correct.
Design to the right-of-way acquisition point, and then that's sort of a logical stopping point until we fund the next stages of the project to really move into building.
I don't know that there's any action required right now. We just want to get sort of a feeling for how you feel that we go on forward.
Well, that makes sense.
And what we'll do, again, we will have to come back with some sort of formal amendment or change order, resolution, whatever you want to call it, to stop the contract. We have to formally do that anyway, just like we do any construction contract. So.
Well, I agree with the concept of getting to some point, stopping, because we just don't have money. So moving on.
No other comments, questions, we'll move to,
I have a
question.
All right, come on up.
Because last time, we also received some documents about Hillsborough Road.
That's next.
Oh, okay.
Just sit
Sit-
there.
Let me go get mine
Get our other notes.
while you're talking.
We didn't have anything in the packet for that, right?
No.
Oh, but we had
So we're gonna
something
have
last
some-
time.
You did not.
We have to put on the boards the plans, except, well,
We just got some information.
we just got it. It's gonna be verbal.
Yeah.
Okay.
John has it. You have it?
I have.
Okay.
Okay, item 4, review and discussion of the planned improvements for the Hillsborough Road project between State Route 96 West and Del Rio Pike as requested at the May 25th, 2010 BOMA work session. Mr. Parker.
Okay, we just received this yesterday, actually. And what we did is we've gotten our consultant to break down the cost, and we did not have time to get all this information to you, but the streetscape elements for Hillsborough Road between 96 West and Del Rio Pike total approximately $860,000. You wanted us to do that. Now, that does not include the basic landscaping, which is around $900,000 total for the whole project, and we're figuring that between the two limits that we just mentioned, that's close to $450,000 to $500,000, because there's more trees and flowers and things like that along that stretch than there is in the residential area. So you're talking about in the neighborhood of $1 million that is for streetscape elements between 96 and Del Rio Pike. And actually, when we talk about that, we're talking about a little beyond north and Del Rio, it's the commercial area. So, but Del Rio's a good place, good way to say it. So
As a
that's what we're
complete-
talking about. That includes your walls. Your walls, the brick wall, screen walls in this area are $583,000 or $583,900. That's the estimated cost for that.
How many is it?
There's quite a few. This is the
Every
screening
intersection?
wall, no, this is well, it's the intersection, some in the intersection, but it's the screening walls for all the parking areas. Some of that we may not need because we're talking about purchasing some of the properties possibly. So if we do that, we wouldn't need the walls for that particular place. But as the design is right now, that's what the estimate is based on. That's the screening walls.
Everything you see on the screen in red, those are the walls.
Red lines.
And that's just
That's just
right at
one.
the intersection.
That's just right at the intersection, yes. So there's several sheets there, but,
I think part of the discussion, probably at the last meeting, was regarding, of course, the flooding, the water, all that. Did we learn anything new or different because of that? Or are we anticipating we won't see that again for years and years and years?
no, you may see it next week
But,
or this weekend, but you never know what you're gonna have in the flooding.
But from the
As we
construction-
said the last time, though, as far as the walls themselves, they're not going to impede the flooding. They will, as was pointed out, it will impede people trying to go straight off the road into their parking, which is something we need to do for traffic. But it will not impede the flooding. The flooding itself should not damage those structures. And in fact, even the brick pavers, some of the area on the north end of Third Avenue was in the flood. It had pavers. It did not damage those pavers. So as far as the streetscape elements, other than landscaping, some bushes or if you have mulch and stuff like that, of course, you're going to have a wash away of that. But as far as the hard structure that's proposed, we don't see damage being caused by flooding. Cleaning may have to take place as with anything, but
Ann?
Come on.
I know you don't want to answer this, Dave, but, what is the purpose or goal of the pavers and the elements I mean, I can see on Columbia Avenue, there's a real potential there for economic development. I think there's some question about whether some of the people thought the walls need to be put up before it was redeveloped, because they may have to come back down before they make improvements out there. But I mean, what is the goal for this area on Hillsborough Road? You know, what is the purpose of this?
The whole look for the streetscape was set up and done through the whatever the long title, Streetscape Steering Committee. It's a steering committee set up, and it came through that, and I believe actually came back to the board for approval, the look, what was being proposed for doing, and it's right now, the Hillsborough Road part is keeping consistency with what has been proposed and approved for streetscape design. So as far as what is I can't address economic development. I mean, you guys all accuse me of just wanting to spend more money than we ever have, so I don't do economic development, but that's what it's for. I mean, that's the intent of it, I suppose.
And I'll just comment from my perspective. I think part of it is you look at it as a major gateway into your downtown and into your community, and you want to provide you want to make it attractive, and you want to help sell not just that section of the community, but the entire entryway into a major component of our town, and that's a major entry point that you see into downtown Franklin. And so I think we wanted to give that some similar treatment that you see in other places, and to help make that an attractive, inviting area as people come and go from Franklin. Now, I think the other part of this is a year ago we spent a good amount of time going through specifics of what elements we wanted in, what elements we wanted out, and I think this reflects what the board gave us further direction on when we revisited it last year, and this is what some of us called sort of streetscape light in terms of this section. And
but could you expand on what you mean, this is streetscape light, in terms of what was taken out of here?
I think we made some adjustments as you went further north towards Mac
Franklin High
Hatchery.
School.
We took elements
I agree
out
with
and
that.
made it a little more consistent with those residential
Right.
areas, which had a little more of a kind of suburban look and feel compared to a more historic downtown look and feel. And so that sort of is a progression from Mac Hatcher heading into town, and I think we adjusted some elements to reflect that and differentiate the northern stretch from the closer into town stretch. I have to look back at the specifics that we adjusted, but we sort of went through methodically the different elements and made sure that the board was comfortable with that mix. And it's always your right to revisit those, and that's a little bit what we're doing now, especially in light of the flood that we just experienced, and do any of these cause us to rethink those? And so this was a follow-up to try to provide some costs associated with those elements too.
I do agree that we made some adjustments, or you want to say,
Deletions.
for the northern part, which I think were very appropriate. I really do not recall very much talking about changes for this part right here. And whenever I got my corridors and connectors economic development, thank you, I believe
Well
is the
said.
correct, but whenever I got those back out, it shows this part of Hillsborough Road as having a lot of development on it. I mean, the picture, in fact, I've got mine here, and I can show you the picture. It shows a lot of economic development along here. And I mean, after this flood, it's a reminder that I do not think that that's appropriate for economic development. And, you know, the comment is that anything is going to have to be built where the lowest usable floor, I mean, other than maybe parking or something like that, is going to have to be out of the floodplain. And and what I understand about that does not go with the, you know, the pictures that they have for this area. I mean, they've got them, you know, right up to the street, you know, businesses.
Well, if we
everything like
didn't
that.
have anything, if we did not have one speck of development in this area, we still have an important gateway into the city. I think we will have economic development along here. I think Sonic, you said Sonic was going to expand, rebuild and expand. the shoe store has already gone down there. I think we're going to have plenty of economic development along here. But if we didn't have anything, if the car lots were moved, we're still going to have a gateway into the city. The car lot, if it comes back, needs to be screened. It needs to be. And don't tell me that people who've been in the car business as long as some of our folks have don't know the danger of a flood, and they can get those cars out if they want to. They'll come out. And they didn't come out on a wrecker. They were driven out. And
Well,
they can certainly be.
Some of them were and some of them weren't, because
Well,
I saw pictures
okay.
of them
They
coming out
can
of the
get,
wreck.
they can get them out. They can get them out.
I-
They've been there that
I
long,
do
they can,
agree,
they can get
they
them out.
could. But I guess my point is, does this fit with the same areas that we're talking about, like Columbia Avenue?
It doesn't have to
it's gonna
be.
be it's gonna
It doesn't have to be.
But let me tell you, if you build the walls and the things like that, I mean, I can see improving the looks of it, but I don't really see that as,
Each gateway gonna have its own particular attraction.
Yeah.
There may be flood-related businesses on that stretch. Who knows? I'm just throwing it out.
Think it might be a
Canoe.
a canoe shop.
Canoe shop, boot shop, whatever. But economic development, I mean, we can't just, I mean, from my sport, I said, we just can't say, oh, it may flood, we won't have it, anybody. There will be certain things that will rise out of this. So I see the glass half full here. We're gonna create some opportunities for some unique and different things.
and so, my question was not just about I was saying, how much is it going to cost for this area compared to the area from, wherever you said, north of Del Rio on to Matt Catcher? I mean, that was my question in addition to the things that you have found. And I mean, well, let me ask you this. On 3rd Avenue here, what economic development unless we tear down some things that are on there?
That's movement of traffic, I think, isn't it?
No, on 3rd Avenue? No,
3rd Avenue North.
No, I'm talking about 3rd Avenue that we've already spent $5 million on.
Oh.
Just right out here.
It's going to go right on around. It's going to carry that traffic right on around.
But I mean, whenever you think about the amount of money,
But it can't be the same. It's going to be entirely different. On Columbia Avenue and 3rd Avenue and Hillsborough Road and 96, they're all different, as Pearl says. They're all different. They each have their own character. They each have their own purpose. And if it couldn't possibly be the same.
maybe I should say, whenever I see so many things that we need to spend money on, and I'm talking about $5 million would take care of some things that we've been talking about that are kind of safety hazards, like the work out there on was it Mallory Station and General George Patton. That's one of our small projects. Whenever I look at even Nickel Mill, which is not one of my favorites, but $1.5 million on that.
Well, aren't we working on those?
But we do not have funding for them. We do not have funding for them.
I think we do, don't we? Oh, is it?
That will be before you Tuesday night.
We'll have resolutions
Yes,
for you.
that's right here.
Wait.
Data fund the top
No,
three.
but it's $500,000. And the two that I just named right there are probably 2.5 million, would you say?
It's about 980,000 for Nickel Mill, it's remaining to be funded, and about 385,000 for the Mallory Station.
And we were also
George Patton's.
And we're also talking about needing that money for the road at at Carnton too. I mean, and you can't spend that a lot of different. I mean, you can't spend it 5 times. Is what I'm saying. And so I just.
Well, we've got 4 million, remember? 4 million we've got, we're going to have, that we didn't spend.
For the interchange.
Interchange 4.8.
But if you look at the money that we are spending, and we haven't even talked about paying for the rest of Hillsborough Road. which is going to be probably another 10 million or more that we haven't already approved. And we're already looking at more than 10% of our general fund being paid in the 2011 budget that we've just passed for debt service. I mean, it used to be 2% of our general fund, and now it's going to be over 10% of it. And the thing is, you're not going to cut that. You may cut some other areas, but that is going to be with you for 20 years. And so, I mean, I'm just looking at part of it as if we've got a certain amount of money that we can spend. And I will tell you, Tuesday night, whenever we were talking about this and talking about the amount of debt service, our consultants said, well, the funding agencies don't see a problem with this because you have such a low property tax rate, and there's plenty of available raise, and she did not say a raise in the property tax rate, that the funding agencies are not concerned because they see we have a low property tax rate. Well, the other side to that is that they think that we can raise our property tax rate a great deal to fund this. I mean, that's the part she didn't say, but that's exactly the comment that was made.
That was one comment and one
That's
point
right.
among many.
That's correct.
Multiple points that they look at in terms of our reserves, our other ratios that you look at that show that we're a very strong credit.
Absolutely.
And so there's no question that was part of it, but that wasn't the only point that was made. There are a lot of other elements that contribute to what they look at, so.
Right, but that was one of the things that was stated, and the implication was, well, we can just raise the property taxes. And we've already got, almost half of our property tax rate now going to pay the debt service in the general fund. 19 cents out of the 43 cents. They are up from like 9 cents a year ago. But as I say, I really see that the Hillsborough Road from Del Rio up to McHatcher, that is the place where we can improve the flow of traffic. There's not going to be any improvement in the flow of traffic for this part right here. It will stay the 4 lanes that it is right now. So there's not a bit of that. And as I say, whenever I look at some other project, and you know, I've said for at least 2 years, there are more worthy projects than there's money to spend. And whenever we're talking about to even finish, you know, if we finish the other part of this on Hillsborough Road, which I'm definitely committed to as our #1 project, but I mean, I'm looking at the part of it that I think will give us more benefit to
Bang for the buck.
more people in the city of Franklin. That's my point.
And I think those points are well taken, and I was sitting there the other night listening to the property tax discussion myself, knowing that there was 2 other property tax rates that the citizens of Franklin pay, so it's just not the 43 cents that we paid, and it's not, if a person just put the blinders on and looks at 43 cents, they have not looked at what is happening in the federal government level and the state level and the other local levels to expect to be able to just arbitrarily raise the property tax rate. That's an answer, but that's not the answer. And I looked at those pictures. I never expected necessarily the buildings and the economic development to match the pictures. You know, I just never did think that was what was there. I thought that was just for cosmetics and for dressing, for window dressing, so I never really expected that. I think it's up to us to determine whether or not we wish to proceed. I think we pull some money out of the Hillsborough Road project. I don't think we've damaged, hurt, or impeded any traffic flow or increased or decreased any traffic flow on Hillsborough Road with what we've done. So I think we need to go, personally, I'm looking forward to the next step and the next step on that. I did notice on Columbia Avenue, a lot of brick walls up there, huh? Everywhere you turn, there was a little brick wall. And if there was one brick wall less, it probably wouldn't hurt anything. But, you know,
And I do want to say, I'm not sure sidewalks are going in? I mean,
On Hillsborough Road.
yeah, who's gonna be walking there?
Well, right now you have school kids walking.
Oh, Lord,
Wait,
yes.
school kids, where is the zone for Franklin High? It probably doesn't go much further, whatever, south or whatever it is.
Well, I'm not talking about the school zone. I mean, you go out Hillsborough Road and you'll see kids walking along Hillsborough Road all the way down to the Sonic and places
Residences
like that.
walk from those subdivisions out that of town, all along the side of the road.
CVS.
Connecting to your downtown, both with foot traffic and vehicle traffic.
Well, and that's part of our Trailways and Greenways program. For connectivity is one of the big issues there, and connectivity.
They're not, Trailways are not paying for this.
No, but it's part of our overall plan, that it's not paying for that, but our overall plan, which we adopted, includes connectivity from downtown out to that direction, including the, over to that subdivision that's there where that trail goes back behind there. Chestnut Bend, and then off to Spencer Creek, and, I mean, it's all part of that. And this, also, when we do Third Avenue, we've got the connector there as well, which will, again, connectivity is an important part of everything, just like we're not talking about it now, but connectivity out to your direction is an important part. But it's the same thing, you've got residences that want to walk downtown, and we need to do what we can to do the walking and bikeway and connectivity. I think that's part of it. But I'll say one other thing is, I'm not embarrassed to say that it's a beautification project. There's nothing wrong with that. And that is the ugliest part of all of Franklin. And it's even uglier today since it's flooded. And I think it will do a lot for the overall development of downtown Franklin and bringing people into there. And that may not be the specific location. See, I don't see this project as helping a specific location. And I know you and I disagree on this, but I see this project as helping all of Franklin and also all of the downtown area and encouraging development in a lot of different areas and helping how people feel about coming downtown and shopping and walking downtown. Lord, I've never seen more people downtown in all of my life. Now, it may have to do with Sweet Cece's, and maybe that's the only reason they're coming down there. But, which I thought was going to be a flop, and now I'm proven to be disastrously wrong. But, we're seeing a lot more people walking downtown, and we're creating more opportunities. And I know we can all argue about the merits, but personally, I don't think there's a place that needs it more than this. Screening and all those kind of things, I think there may be some opportunities there, and I just think it's important.
Maybe I should say that we have spent a lot of money already
I agree.
on things like this, that now that I'm looking at some other projects where we feel that we don't have the money, then maybe I'm thinking that it would have helped more people.
And those are just judgment calls. And we
Absolutely.
all have a vote on that, and I think that's just where we are. And
But as I
we're not
say-
all going to agree on those issues.
I would have to say, though, that whenever a lot of this was proposed, everyone was thinking that the money was going to increase every year forever.
I don't disagree.
My understanding is we're moving forward
Yep.
with this project as designed, as anticipated. I haven't heard a
That's
direction
mine.
otherwise.
That's mine.
That's where we're going. That's what was approved in the funding plan, and we'll continue on that path unless we hear the board direct otherwise.
Thank you.
Okay, but now, right now, the only money that we have approved for this is how much money?
No, you've approved in your funding plan the entire funding of Hillsborough Road. We haven't issued all the debt yet, but we have, when you did the funding plan, you approved the funding of the entire project. Now, we have issued debt in stages because that's what made sense to do, and we had a unique opportunity to get the 45% reduction on taxable bonds for the areas that were in the defined recovery zone, which this southern portion from 96 up to Del Rio Pike helps cover. And so we did issue that because we had a great interest environment, and we had just this year to issue that debt. And so we went ahead and did sort of front load that part. and the remainder will come probably at least a year or so out till we do the second borrowing.
But that is not on those projections that we got from BFM.
What you saw 2 nights ago, no, but when you did the funding plan, the whole funding was in there. When we made the decision and you went through the process of adopting your funding plan, it included the entire project. What you saw now is what's been issued to this point, which is, I don't know, roughly 80% of all the borrowing that was anticipated in that funding plan. But there is those remaining pieces, and what was reflected in those charts showed just what has been issued to date. So that last piece will still need to happen in terms of the second piece of borrowing to get that project done.
Let me ask another question then, talking about the money. What about the 3rd Avenue North? Because I understood that it was going to be broken up into parts, and we were going to vote on which parts of it, once the bid, I guess the bids come in, about which ones we want to fund. So in other words, even though we have voted on the funding plan, we have not actually voted to spend the money until the bids come in. Is that right?
What we were going to do is bring to you the bid structure with the alternates so that you could give us some direction on how you wanted to do that, so that we could look at what elements made sense to do as a base project and what elements made sense to put in as sort of a bid alternate, so that we could look at what the opportunities were to do that, because that is a roadway project that has some Bicentennial Park elements in it, some of which make sense to do at the time you're doing the project, and some of which might be more in the category of nice to have. And so we wanted to break that out for you so that there'd be some flexibility or some options in how you implement that project. But the funding of that project was also included in that funding plan, which is primarily the roadway component of that plan, not all the park elements.
Okay, so how much, are we saying that we already have all of that money then in the bonds that we have already issued?
It's about 3.7 million, I think, which was the roadway elements primarily.
Because it shows on these sheets that we have that it's a $7 million+ project.
What we attributed to this was 3.7 million, and I think that's actually consistent with that's in line with what we had in the funding plan.
And that's how many feet? How many feet of road is that?
It's new road construction, so.
1,500 or so, 2,000.
So for the third of a mile, and it's going to cost us $3 million? $3 million plus, almost $4 million?
With all the elements, it's not just a roadway.
Well,
It's got a bridge, it's got other elements that make sense to do while you're doing this, so.
well, as I say, on some projects, I'm just thinking, is it worth the money that we're planning that we have proposed to spend on?
Any other comments on item 4? Going to item 5, consideration of proposed professional services agreement, City of Franklin contract number 2010-0098 with Little John Engineering Associates for the design and construction administration of the eastern flank Battlefield Park access roadway for a lump sum of $79,000.
We have this before you, but since we put this packet together, the mayor has asked that we look at doing a design-build possibility for this project. We will, and of course, we can look into that. Also, just for your, to point out, we are going to be looking at the alternatives Tuesday night for what we want to do and what we think we can fund for the roadway project on the eastern flank. This project, as proposed, we'll be able to get the design done for what we need to do. We feel confident on that, but we can look at the design build aspects of it. And right now, in talking to Mr. Stuckey, we're proposing to pull this item from your Tuesday night agenda as far as getting approval of it. We were just trying to get going on the project.
And if I could address that, Clyde.
Yes.
one is Eric and I and Parker and other people talked about doing some design-build projects here in Franklin, and I think there's some great merit to that for a multitude of reasons, and I won't need to go into here. But this really sets itself out perfect for that because, there's already, since we've started, there have been countless discussions about what type of road we ought to put in, how we ought to do it, should we have curb, not curb, should we do more heavy-duty asphalt that has something to do with the number of buses and traffic, and so there's a lot of issues there, and that really creates a great opportunity for someone who's in the business, and I won't use names, but somebody who's in the business who has professional staff on staff that can come with us and say, okay, we studied it, here are recommendations, and giving us options as to what can be done, what the cost would be, how we proceed on a timely basis without us having to actually design what the road ought to look like. Because, we would have to hire somebody, and it really lays out perfectly for a design-build opportunity. And I think, and also, there's been some talk about this particular road having some maybe in-kind services or some other thing being given to us through the community, and that also would lend itself well in a design-build structure. So I think one is it's a cost-saving feature. What raised my eyebrow was $79,000, and that seemed extremely high. And I think there's a way we can get that done a lot cheaper, get a better product, get it done probably quicker, and with input from the different sort of groups that will have input. And I think this is the right way to go, personally.
Mike?
I kind of agree with the mayor. The $79,000 was kind of an eye-opener. I mean, we already have a basic plan of the path of the road. There will be some major modifications as far as the width and things like that, but this seems excessive, and we haven't really decided how much to allocate to this, but if we did go with the $300,000, this would be almost a third of what, and we certainly can't get it done with this much of it in the engineering design, and this appears to be a fairly simple project, and I don't know that it needs that much oversight. There's no hydrants, I don't think there's going to be a need for walls. We've had success. We've had success as far as having volunteers come out and do archaeological surveys. As long as the state doesn't require it, the feds don't require it, we could call on those services. They mark the things with GPS. They've done it on the property there in the past that has yielded some very interesting finds. But for us to go to all these expenses as if there were federal monies that this was required, I think it's a little overboard. Well, and this is also premature because we hadn't really fleshed out what we're going to do.
And a design-build people will help us flesh out what we're going to, that's the point. I mean, they will help us come to a conclusion about what type of surface, what can be there, what works, what doesn't work, through their knowledge of doing these type of products. And so that's why I think this really lends us. Normally, it's the city saying, okay, here's exactly what we want. You got to go to our standards. We have certain road standards, and this is what you do, and you have an engineer design it, and then you bid it. This is beyond that, and it's really different, and so it will help. But I mean, but this road still has to be professionally designed, and has to be make sure that it withstands what we put to it. But there's an aesthetic side to it. There's other issues: curb, no curb, type of surface. What type of sub base we need to put on it, and I think I think this, again, I'm being redundant, I hate to do that, but I think it lays well with this type of proposal, so.
It's worth a try.
And we'll bring to you, Tuesday we'll have a little more discussion about that, because there are some different considerations and questions about the type of utility you want out of this road and what we expect it to do that may influence that, but it is a good candidate for design build, and we'd like to look at that option, and that's why we sort of pulled back on this item specifically at this point. But there are some added complexities to this road and questions we need answered about what you want it to do, what's the long-term vision for how this fits into that area.
So what are you saying you want? Option number 1 or option number 3?
On item.
Right now,
Nothing.
no option.
Nothing.
Not even Tuesday, we're not gonna have.
3.
No, we're not voting on anything.
Nothing.
We're asking you to not vote, and we're going to have a further discussion on some elements of the road on Tuesday, and then talk about how design build might work. That's the charge for us to look at.
All right.
I'm good with that.
Item 6, consideration of the request for sanitary sewer availability at 114 Spencer Creek Road. Mr. Parker, what are you recommending?
This is Mr. Gardner.
Mr. Gardner?
This is one of those properties that's outside the city limits, outside the UGB, but they could be served by sewer, although then a portion of the property is adjacent to it. Where the house is not really adjacent to the sewer. Really, they're looking for something from the city. The county is requiring that they get some type of answer.
Is it a repeat? We did something like this before.
Yes. This is
Several times.
Yeah.
We get these kind of things.
Recently, it's getting to be a lot.
And it does sort of open up a broader question about how the board wants us to handle this, and there are these situations where the question is, can you serve it? And the answer is, well, we could serve it.
Yeah.
That's the determination, right?
But it's outside the city and it's outside the UGB. Do we want to get into stretching the sewer
Individual
system
stuff.
further out for these individual 1 and 2 lot type of things? And, you know, to this point, we've sort of said no. Generally, we could serve it, but we don't, we'll deny availability at this point. Unless the board wants us to have a broader interpretation of how we want to provide sewer service, that's where we are right now. And I don't know if the board wants to have more of a discussion about that, or if you're comfortable with that approach. That's kind of how we've been going to this point.
The owner is
I'm
not
comfortable.
really requesting availability.
They-
only
the
determination.
yes.
They kind of are required to by
Yeah.
the county to ask that question. And our answer truthfully is, well, we could serve it, but it's not sure that it's really efficient for a single lot or a few lots outside of our urban growth boundary.
So your recommendation's
Figure out where
no?
this lot is. I'm trying to figure out.
It's on Spencer Creek.
I know that,
Pass.
but where?
Just north of where, I guess, whatever section of Fieldstone Farms that is.
Oh, it's north of Fieldstone, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I move that we deny this item.
Staff recommendation, whatever that is.
Yes.
Proper motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, are we denying, are we recommending denial from this committee to the workshop and/or to the board?
Gotta go to the board.
It would be
Board.
denial to the board.
Denial to the board, good enough. That's our recommendation to the board.
And I also,
Next.
Consideration of request for sanitary sewer availability at 2021 Old South Berry Chapel Road. Mr. Garner, you're up again.
Same thing, this is actually adjacent to it, but the address is Old South Berry's Chapel Road, so it actually comes out on another road, but it's adjacent to this property here, same situation.
Staff recommends no availability.
So moved.
okay, I'll second that.
Proper motion is second. The motion is to recommend to the full board that this committee deny availability, or recommends denial of availability. Proper motion is second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Consideration of contract with Stanzel Electric Company, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $1,048,520.70 for Franklin ITS Phase 1 ARRA, American Recovery Investment Act project. Mr. Parker.
This is a project that we do have funding through the ARA. However, the funding does not cover the entire cost as bid. If we approve this award of contract, we are essentially Russ, listen. We are essentially intending to fund a little over $73,000 toward the project because the funding is $975,000 and it came in bid at $1,048,000. However, as the memo is pointing out, there is a $100,000 contingency built into the funding that is intended to try to not have to spend, et cetera. We can cut some things. We don't think we're going to be spending the whole amount that as bid, but the way it was set up for bid, that's what it is. We think, and Kevin can address this a little bit more if you need him to, we think we can get this project in under the amount of money as funded through the ARA. But again, I want to point out where everybody understands, if you award as bid, then we are committing ourselves to funding out of city coffers $73,000 plus dollars. Don't think we're going to have to spend it, but that's what we're actually doing.
This has been
Is that
Kevin's
clear as
baby.
For quite some time.
Yeah, and has done great work in getting it to this point and helping take advantage of the opportunity to use the stimulus funding.
Well, and it started out only being $500,000, and then because of additional dollars that came back to the MPO, then we got the other $500,000. So,
And through part of the process, once we were aware of this fact, I did go back to the MPO and at least ask if we could get the additional 73, which was declined, but we did ask.
We don't have any problem with the ARA funding if we come in under and the 73,000 comes off of our portion of the, let's say there's 70,000 under and our 70 comes under the 73, but we can use all of the.
We have $975,000 of ARA funds that we can spend.
We get to spend their dollars first.
That's the
Yes.
question.
Yes.
So if we come in at $970,000, that's all we spend. We leave $5,000.
So moved.
Second.
The proper motion is second. Recommend to the, will this go to the workshop or the board?
This will go to the board.
Go to the full board. Proper motion second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Basically,
Thank you,
if
Kevin.
out of this committee, if you're doing a recommendation, we're taking it straight to the board versus work session unless there's some
Yeah, unless you tell us. you wanna have
controversy
a-
or you tell us you
Good.
want it to go to
I
work
think
session.
that's 9, consideration of the final change order for the State Route 96 at Royal Oaks Boulevard intersection construction project with Civil Constructors, a deduct in the amount of $109,217.73. For the closeout of the project, total cost of construction was $2,086,004.82.
So moved.
Second.
Before you vote, you should point out that 109,000 gets added to the 900,000 before that was already previously approved, so it's a total savings of over $1 million.
What did I say?
So now you can vote.
Now you vote.
Discuss.
You can feel a little better about your vote when you vote.
Yeah, 10 times better.
Yeah, that's right.
Proper motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Item 10, consideration of the final change order for the McEwen Drive intersection construction project from Jordan Road to Cool Springs Boulevard with Civil Constructors, a deduct in the amount of $399,969.63 for the final closeout of the project. Total cost of construction was $1,241,001.02.
Margaret, you want to take this?
I'll take this. I'll do it.
These deducts doesn't come that often.
So moved.
Second.
Proper motion is second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Item 11, consideration of change order number 1 for the Carter Street area water and sewer upgrade project with LNC Contractors for an additional 60 days to the contract. Mr. Parker.
This is needed in order to allow for the Habitat construction to get to a point where our contractor can get all the paving done correctly. It will not cost us any more money. We're just asking for a 60-day time extension.
So moved.
Second.
Proper motion is second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Item 12, consideration of the final change order for the Franklin Corridors and Connector Streets Economic Development Project, Segment 1, 3rd Avenue North and 5th Avenue North construction project with several constructors in the amount of $107,577.50 for the final closeout of the project.
This is to rectify the unit pricing, et cetera, things that actually went into the construction. It is a final change order. I do want to point out that this is on your agenda for Tuesday night, but we are recommending that it be deferred until the next board meeting, with whatever date that is. 27th of July. The reason is we have this amount set up based on truck tickets that were collected on the job by our inspectors and by EG&G inspectors. The contractor has indicated he has more truck tickets that we did not get and thinks there is an additional $16,000 or $17,000 worth of work or materials that should be added to this. We are asking for the deferral as far as final approval of this until the next meeting to give the contractor time to see if he can come up with these truck tickets. We do not have them. Normally, I would say we would not worry about the truck tickets because they're supposed to make sure our inspectors have them. But we had a change in the contract for construction administration with EG&G where there was a time frame there that we had some possible inspection time where there could have been some truck tickets that did not get collected by our people. So in all fairness, we think we should give the contractor time to look and see if he can come up with these. So anyway, that's where we are. And what we're asking for is a recommendation of approval of the final change order contingent upon staff rectifying the exact amount. Right now, it looks like it's going to be this $107,000.
Truck tickets.
The quantity.
Pull up on the line.
It's quantities. It's
what?
truck tickets. It's where they bring in gravel or something and we gather.
amount of material
It's
used.
the amount of material used in the construction.
Construction.
It could be asphalt, could be gravel or whatever it is, and we get the truck tickets to verify what has gone into the project.
Okay.
See how much we learned?
Learned something tonight.
You thought it was like an insurance card, didn't you?
I thought they were parking tickets.
Get caught speeding. It could be a parking ticket.
So for this committee, you need what?
Need to recommend approval contingent upon staff rectifying the final amount.
So moved.
Second.
Proper motion is second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 13, consideration of resolution 2010-0059, a resolution to authorize the emergency expenditure of $45,395.17 for the Paintsville Road drainage repair to be paid from the Stormwater Reserve Fund. Mr. Parker.
This is something that we had to do due to the flooding that washed out a culvert. I guess it actually collapsed, and we did the repair. It was done under our annual contract, but as we've stated before, our annual contract does not necessarily have a budgeted amount, so we're bringing to you a resolution to set that amount that would be spent out of the reserve fund. It is Stormwater Reserve Fund, so that's what we'd be paying for. Now, this is eligible for reimbursement from FEMA or NRCS or whatever. It's eligible for some reimbursement. We don't know how much. I think it's 100%, but we haven't got that clarified yet.
Have you already applied for that?
This
That reimbursement?
We've documented this. Have
We
submitted the
documented it.
sheets?
Okay, so it is, the
I thought it-
worksheet has been done. I was thinking it had, but I wasn't sure.
Do you have to apply every time for every item that you're going to?
Not every item, but we have been told that we need to keep our applications or our worksheets to 62,000, I think it is, or less if at all possible, because then we get a bigger chunk of what it is.
There's
And it
a
goes through
small
quicker.
project designation, and those work quicker, too. We get
It works quicker, yeah.
We get the funding back more quickly through, on the small projects, so we're trying to, as much as possible, break these into chunks that fit into a small project definition, so that the paperwork can be handled more quickly, and the FEMA folks are all in favor of that as well. So they kind of are working with us. What we're trying to do generally is they've got these A through G categories of expenditure that you use in different responses, and we're trying to break it out by category and by department, and doing the worksheets sort of on that basis generally, and submitting those as we go. It's going to take months to get through it all, but this is one we've been able to document pretty directly.
Some departments have multiple divisions, so if we have to, we'd break it down by division also. So we're trying to keep it to the small projects.
Well, move that we accept the staff recommendation.
Second.
Proper motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Parker, number 14, announcement of public hearing concerning the Carlisle Lane Boyd Mill at State Route 96 West signalization project for tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. in the boardroom.
You just
Right
announced
here.
it.
Good enough.
Good job.
Come on.
And we talked about this last time, and we have gotten the word out to the HOA and the other folks
Yes.
involved, so folks should be
Word
well
is out,
informed.
and it was in the paper.
I think we published it, yeah.
Are we ready to go forward with this?
Well, it's a public hearing or a public meeting tonight, hear comments back. We have 4 additional alternates for how to do this. Then we have to make a decision on how we're going to actually do it, and we do not have,
So we're not ready?
no,
Not ready?
no.
The answer's no.
But it's a part of the
Well,
process.
this is to get feedback on those additional alternatives, because there was a request, especially from some of the neighbors, to look at ways that lessen the amount of land that we took in doing the intersection. So that's what these design alternatives are geared towards. So we'll talk about those, see if there's some consensus around some of those designs, and bring that back to the board.
Okay.
It will be coming back to you again.
Item 15, street project status report. Do you want to cover, does anyone want to cover anything on there?
I do want to point out that we have authorized some title searches on Hillsborough Road, and this is due to the fact that some of those properties were damaged during the flood, and we're trying to look and see if we can, and 3 of the properties actually were included in the resolution that we did last year as far as we were going to purchase the whole property. So
Is this residential?
no, ma'am, it's commercial. And so we've gone on and authorized the title searches where we can look at doing this. One of them is the fueling station at the city, TriStar Fueling Station. And of course, it's been flooded, and they're not planning on coming back there. So we're looking at trying to take advantage, I guess is one way to say it, but anyway, that's what we're doing. Anything else? If you have any questions?
Any
on
questions?
Other projects?
Any questions from any of the other 3 aldermen on any of the projects that you see listed?
I don't know, we want to hear about water, maybe the next one.
I understand that, I was talking to Eric yesterday, we're still on track with McEwen 3. We're just waiting for them to get back with their approval of our design. Do you anticipate, David, any problems with that?
Well, right now, we're waiting on getting.
The right-of-way's got to come back.
We got to get certification of right-of-way. Once we get certification of right-of-way, then we will immediately submit plans for approval. Don't expect that to take very long because it is a city road, but right now, we're still waiting on that certification of
How
right-of-way.
long have we been waiting on that letter?
The right-of-way?
That letter, that's 2 months now.
We had that.
Well, we had some things we had to do and resubmit, so since we've gotten the additional information, it's only been 2, maybe 3 weeks at the most.
Yeah. The last thing that they asked for, we clarified it. It was about 2.5 weeks ago, and I know Jonathan's been in contact with them.
Yeah, but we submitted that, Eric, when? That letter was submitted, that was...
It's been a few
Because
months
I've been,
ago.
you
Yes,
know,
it's been a few months ago.
As far as initially,
I'm trying to be nice about this.
As far as initially,
I'm
a few
just-
months ago,
I'm
yes.
just curious if,
Well,
they've talked to you in the last couple of weeks?
Yes.
I've spoken with TDOT, the right-of-way office.
Okay.
I emailed our contact in the right-of-way office on last Friday.
Right.
The last time he responded to me was probably a week and a half ago. We are expecting, approval of our right-of-way certification, like imminently, in the next few days. We've gotten them everything that they needed. We had one remaining property we needed to get from, one remaining easement we needed to get. But we are expecting that approval very shortly.
So as soon as we get that approval.
Designs are already complete.
The plan, we'll send the plans.
Send it to
Yeah, we
them.
immediately give them the design as soon as we get the right of way.
Now, I will actually walk that down there in person.
Yeah, Eric and I talked about that, but I just thank you for that input, that's helpful. Because, I do get calls every week. I mean, I can't tell you who calls and emails I get.
Immediately after we get the approval from TDOT for the design, we will advertise, so.
And that takes 3 weeks, right?
3 weeks for advertisement. I mean, the whole process takes a couple months, between the time we actually advertise to the time you actually approve and construction starts, generally 2 to 3 months.
So this fall.
And is this
So we're
part
not
of
going to
the
start in
We're not
August.
bonds that we've already issued?
Yes.
I just
We
don't
haven't
think by
updated-
September,
yeah.
they could see the dirt moving in September. That's not going to happen.
We haven't updated the date
No.
because we're kind of not sure. I mean, we know it's basically going to be 3 months from the point that we get back from TDOT. the approval.
So we're
Keep
off-
pushing.
We're off schedule a little bit. Okay. All right.
Mike?
I did want us to talk a little bit about the water reservoir project.
It is next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anything else on the road?
Anything else on the road?
Yeah, I'll point out one thing. On MacHatcher, we are closing with our second homeowner tomorrow. Of course, we bought one property 2 years ago. This will be the second home that we're buying. And we've made another offer for one of the homes. Haven't gotten I guess, an agreement yet, but we've at least got one we're buying tomorrow.
Any other street issues? Item 16, Water Management Projects Status Report.
I think somebody must have been praying, Jack. Wait a minute.
Mr. Skinner, do you want to cover one specific?
No, I just, are we currently, I know we can't pump water into the reservoir now because it's in repair, but are we under the guidelines of the state that we can't pump from the river anyway?
Right now, the flow of the river is to the
So
point that
long
we
as-
cannot pull from the river. We're bringing Harpeth Valley water into our system, providing additional secondary treatment and pumping it out into the system. We made a number of improvements on the system over the last couple years that improve our ability to bring more volume into it. And that's what we've been seeing. We're somewhere around close to 8 million gallons a day coming in from Harpeth Valley Utility District right now.
That's what we're using today.
That's what the rate of draw is as of this morning.
And the river's down less than 10, whatever.
CFS.
Yeah, below 10.
But it'll be up in a little while.
As
It's
we
raining right now,
speak,
so we like that.
That won't last for a couple hours.
As a comparison for your May flood event, the highest recorded flow during the flood event was 46,000 CFS. We're down below 10 right now.
Can you believe after all that rain, we're as dry as we are?
From one extreme to the other.
Good.
And
Not only, this is an aside question, but I know all those other people, all those other systems get water from Harpeth Valley. Does anybody else retreat except us?
No. Nobody else has the ability to retreat it except for us.
well, I guess, not to leave that, anybody else have the amount of transmission lines in the city that, we know that we had some issues going south and to Goose Creek last year before last one with some of the water quality. And we decided that was the way to go, was for us to retreat some and also keep.
Retreating all the time. Now, they've been retreating.
Well, there was, and pressure issues.
Yeah, only the last few years have we retreated any water. Now, as far as retreating, I don't know if any of the other systems have any injection points for chlorine or anything like that. I couldn't tell you that, but as far as what we're doing is we're taking it into our plant and retreating it and making sure that we have everything correct and we're not running into any problems with what we have to serve. So I will tell you that some of the other systems have had violations. It's come out in the consumer reports, consumer confidence reports, but not major violations.
Have you talk a little bit about conservation, or do we need to be looking at that, even though we're not, there's no kind of
we're not under any specific limitations at this point, but we are keeping a close eye on it. Not having the reservoir online does take away a cushion that we had before that helps us. So we are asking people to conserve where they can and just be good stewards of that resource. And we really have seen that even before this situation. This last June that we just completed a few days ago, very hot, very dry month, and we saw a 10% reduction in the demand from our customers compared to 2 years ago, June 2008, which was also a hot, dry month. And so that's really just shows that is caught on with a lot of our customers, that's part of what they do every day now, and we encourage them to keep doing that because we want to keep our supplies good and keep in a good position. And again, right now we're in a good position, but we're keeping a close eye on it, and it has been a dry spell, and we're going to need to keep an eye on it throughout the summer. Without the reservoir online, it makes it a little more of an issue we're aware of. So.
And we do want to say that we have also controlled some leaks.
Absolutely. One of the things we did last year was this leak survey and went around and fixed leaks. And we attribute the repairs that took place, the improvements that came from that leak detection to be about 40 million gallons a year that we have managed to keep in the system, if you will, that was otherwise leaking out of the system. So that's something we're looking at too, to make our system more efficient that way as well.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd add that, we've got 3 special assessment projects, Boyd Mill, Country Road, and Monticello. All 3 of those are basically complete now. Monticello will be finished, or final paving next week. The other ones are finalizing quantities, so those will come back to the board. I don't know if we have anticipated time, but they'll be coming back to the board soon for final approval of the final cost and close out that special assessment.
Just about a day ago, we got a request from the Monticello neighborhood and through Alderman McClendon that we have a review of the Monticello project at our next work session, not the 13th, but the 27th of July. So we will provide that. There was a request to just look at the project.
We should be through and out of there.
Answer some basic questions. We'll be wherever we are at the project at that point, but we are at the stage where we're really just some testing and acceptance, and we're doing, then the paving needs to take place, the final paving. So
we have to have final numbers, cost, because that's what the assessment is based on, is that final number.
No one at this point is online.
We have not turned the project over for town yet. We will not do that until we get final cost.
For those 3 areas.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And one thing to keep in mind also is the law has changed. We cannot do it by resolution anymore. We have to do it by 2 reading ordinance. So we will be preparing the ordinance and bring it to you as soon as we have the cost and can run the calculations for what the assessment is.
Is Highgate on?
Highgate is completed and it is working and they are paying, et cetera, et cetera. And still fussing.
some.
I got one more.
Yes.
The integrated plan, water plan, public forum is Monday. here in the boardroom, integrated water plan. Monday,
Yes.
Monday here.
Five o'clock is a board work session.
We're doing a work
Six-
session for, yeah, go ahead.
6:30 is the public forum. The work session is to bring the project to the board for you to be able to see what's going on and run through how the modeling is done. It will be a little bit more in-depth, basically the same presentation, a little bit more in-depth on the modeling for you as a board than for the public forum, but they will still also get to see it. So that's Monday night, 5 o'clock here.
Item 17, any discussion on stormwater project status reports? Uh-oh, anybody's lost their chance.
That's right.
Are you ready to leave? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn
Till 6.
till 6.
So, do we, second.
I heard a motion in a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
You heard my eye too.